Thank you. All right, it's 5 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. If you can stand by for 1 second, I can share my screen with this sweet picture of a flag that I have. I can do that. Hold on. Wi-Fi issues always at the wrong time. All right. All right, so if you could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all. All right, next up is public comment. Jeremiah, do we have anyone for public comment?
We had nobody reach out to me or follow up on my request for comment, so no.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. All right, next up are presentations.
I'm sorry, excuse me. I did have a quick public comment.
Okay, great. We have a 3-minute limit, so
Okay. I won't even
be muted at the end of the 3 minutes. So okay. Laura, if you want to start the timer, Ms. Snowbird, you're good to go.
Yeah, my name is Monica Snowbird. I am the program director for the Project Hesea here in Colorado Springs. I'm also on the board for People of the Sacred Land and the MMIR Task Force of Colorado. And I hope that this is the right group of folks. We got word from the Denver Indian Commission today that the library district is looking to rename, thankfully, and long time overdue, the Knights of Columbus Hall. And from what we understand and what I've been able to figure out today by talking to other people from the community, there's been no outreach to the communities of color, specifically the Native community, regarding input on renaming of the hall. And we were thinking that this would be it'd be bad to have a missed opportunity for healing to involve people of color in the communities that the long-lasting legacy of violence that Columbus has, that we're still dealing with those consequences now. And so we would just like to be able to figure out who is on the renaming committee and how can we get maybe a meeting with some of the Latinx community leaders, the Black community leaders, and the Native community leaders here in Colorado Springs so that we can move forward. I'm sure, as you know, we've already worked to replace Columbus Day across the state, and also here locally, we have Indigenous Peoples Day. So we would just like to kind of continue with that momentum and do right by the communities that have been impacted by this.
Thank you, Ms. Snowbird. I appreciate that. We will have someone reach out to you to help connect later. We do have that on our agenda as a decision item. And so we will have discussion about that later in the meeting if you would like to stick around. Any other public comment? Okay, so next up is presentations. Item 4. Item 1, I was told we are pushing to March, so we will go on with number 2, Shannon Hill. And so I'll turn it over to Ms. Hoggett.
Good evening, board. Very nice to see all of you, and I hope you are all staying warm in this very cold day. I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for giving us this few minutes to introduce our new senior accountant. Her name is Shannon Hill. I believe she is on the call, and I'll turn it over to her in just a moment. But I wanted to say a few things and just let you know she has been such a wonderful addition to our team. And not only is she a Navy veteran, but she is also coming to us from the auditing world via Biggs Covert. And so we do enjoy having that other set of eyes on our stuff. So Shannon, would you like to say anything?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shannon. Just not much else to say. I am a Navy vet. I was in for 6 years. I also have some experience in the oil industry, which is completely different than here, but I'm very excited to be here. I've really enjoyed it, even though it's been a month, but it's been great. So I'm happy to be here and I'm excited. So
Thank you. Welcome to the Pikes Peak Library District. Looking forward to having you here, and thank you for your service.
thank you.
All right, next is Pikes Peak Poet Laureate Ashley Cornelius. Miss Cornelius, are you here?
Hi, yes.
Oh, there you are. Hi, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for having me. My name is Ashley Cornelius, and I am the current Pikes Peak Region Poet Laureate as funded through PPLD. And so I'm really honored to just get a chance to talk to you all about what my laureateship has looked like over this past year and then share a poem with you all. I first just want to share my deep gratitude for the reinstating of this program. I'm the 6th Poet Laureate in our lineage. There was a gap between the 5th and myself, and so excited at the rejuvenation of this project. So what that looks like, this is really my civic leadership duty to the community. And so I get to represent art and poetry. I get to do commissions. I do workshops. I work with our youth. As a part of my laureateship, I have 4 contractual events that I do with the library district. So last year that was, I did my inauguration, the Poetry Summit, which was our first ever Pikes Peak Region Poetry Summit, which is offered through the library free for attendees to engage in poetry, art, workshops, and learn about different local artists across our community. And then did 2 summer programs through the library, and so created Legos that had Velcro on them so that young kids could create Lego structures and build castles and things, and then could put words on it so they could learn some like fine motor stuff and some poetry in a fun way. It was really beautiful to see young kids creating poetry through Legos, and also for caregivers to read out the poems. So it didn't matter if kiddos could read yet, but really engaging project. So I was happy to work there. From October of 2021 until now, I have done over 100 events in the community as Poet Laureate, which is a really beautiful thing. Some notable things that I've been able to do is that I opened up for the former Poet Laureate of the United States, Joy Harjo. So she came to Denver through the Bold Women Speaker Series, and I was one of the poets alongside Bobby Lefebvre, the Poet Laureate for Colorado. So we opened up for her, which is an opportunity of a lifetime, and was so cool that we got to put Colorado Springs and the Pikes Peak region on the map alongside her. I also created a custom poem for Opal Lee, who is the grandmother of Juneteenth. She came to Colorado Springs for a book signing at Hooked on Books, and then Peggy Shivers dedicated one of her concerts to her as well. And so I got to present that poem and open up for her. I also did a residency at Green Mountain Falls for the Green Box Arts Festival, and got to create a custom poem, which I'm going to read to you all in just a moment, for the Sky Space that was installed, the James Turrell installation, which is the first of its kind embedded into a mountain. And as Poet Laureate, I am the first civilian person in the world to ever see the full presentation of the Sky Space. It was 4 a.m. and men in a truck picked me up and took me to this space. But it was really cool. I got to experience it, see the actual progression of light in time, and then created a custom piece. A lot of my work as Poet Laureate has been community centered, so bringing in other local artists and poets, really working within our schools, being a judge for the Jean Chavon Poetry Contest, as well as the Fountain Valley School Citywide Contest, and really helping people understand that art and poetry is an elevated space. It is something that we can really aspire to be and encourage our young folks to pursue art aspects. We know that STEM is now also adding STEAM and adding that A in. So arts are becoming a huge part of kind of this new sect of education that we're encouraging young folks to be in. And I just really love this role as poet laureate and being able to do incredible things. Also opened up for the philanthropy collective that just got started. It's connected to the Well, as well as Philanthropy Southwest. So it's been great also to support the nonprofit community as well as getting poetry into unique spaces. So I want to use just the last bit of my time to share a poem with you all to see kind of what actually happens. So the piece that I'm going to share is what I created during the residency with Green Mountain Falls and Greenbach Arts Festival. And so this is the poem that I wrote for the Sky Space. And if you have not seen it already, everything will make sense when you see this and hear the poem. And I can also send a link to you all for they did a drone footage with my poem in the background as well to give you the full picture. But this piece is called Look Up for the James Turrell Sky Space. I dare you to look up in the sky space, to embrace a new perspective, live fully in the present moment, ceremonially disrobe your preconceived notions, leave them at the door and walk into curiosity. Turn your head towards a universe aching to connect, lock eyes with studded stars and beveled clouds, ground feet on smooth tile, lean back, and formally introduce yourself to a world existing right above us. Stare boldly into a piece of sky carved out of the collective unconscious. Tuck away the secrets you learn, scribed in the apex of a sunrise. Honor the wisdom, the brushstrokes across sunset nights. Nourish the soul in technicolor brilliance. Experience the way light alters our perception. Catalyst colors turn night skies bright blue with the softness of an inhale. Watch the world transform before your eyes. Marvel at your eyes transforming reality before you. Build a world without ever saying a word. The silence is not the absence of sound, but the stillness of spirit. Your spirit deserves to rest. Heal in this space. Collectively feel what it means to dream without limits. Emerge after the colors have danced along walls and washed over you. Travel down the worn path back to what we thought we knew. Invite those who have yet dared to dream to step into the artistry of their imagination. Share how the sky is a canvas and we are all impressionists. Painting joy with an exhale, fostering healing in a blink of an eye. I dare you to look up and imagine a world of your own. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great. And you seem like a perfect ambassador to our community. So I appreciate all of the work that you've done and sharing that with us today. That's fantastic. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, next we have our reports. For those of you who are familiar with our normal cadence, we rearranged some things. So Ms. Jordan, you get to go first, and then you don't have to stick around when we have meetings that last till 10 o'clock at night.
Thank you. I saw that and I'm like, oh, you guys are just wonderful. So you see the report, and one of the things that I find really wonderful is that our sales just keep staying at, $11,000, $12,000. I mean, it just impresses me because I lead a book club at the Monument Library. And last night I was giving out bookmarks for the upcoming book sale in March. And one of the guys goes, geez, I don't even know when the last time I bought a book because I've gone technology, the Kindle and things like that. And I shared a little bit about this. I said, oh my gosh, I said, this is where we make our money. I said, there are obviously people who still want that to feel the real book. And that's what I do. I really I use the audiobooks, I use Kindle, but I really love having a real book in my hand. The biggest thing that happened in January for us was that we launched our new website, the Friends website. So it's much, you know, we've got a lot of, I'm not going to say younger, but not really younger. You know, 50 is younger compared to me. So we have a group now of our directors who really are energized and feel that we are missing out and connecting to, I think, younger folks who are very media savvy. And so the new website, thank you to PPLD, because what they've done is they've linked. So if somebody clicks on the PPLD website where it says Friends, that then forwards them to our new website. And everything. And so we can do a lot more sort of movie kind of clips. Our webmaster, who is Meg Schaefer, if anybody knows her from El Pomar, she just has gone crazy. I'm worried we're going to burn her out, but she's just gone crazy. And so we've gotten some really good comments about the website. It's a very different look. And because of that, she's also sort of changed our newsletter. So it's lots of changes and everything. So my goal right now is to make sure that she doesn't overwork herself and everything. So that was a biggie with launching the Friends website. And then the other thing in January, we looked at our committees, we structured them where we thought they needed to be restructured a little bit, set goals for the committee. So I'll give you a joke and you'll understand this. So for the executive committee, for the officers of our board of directors, we said we wanted to fully, fill all of our positions, director positions. We have 15, we can be up to 15. And when we set that goal, we had 13 people on the board. So we only needed 2 people. Well, then we had 3 people retire. Somebody had a family emergency come up, so they left. We, in fact, might have another one. So now we're at 10, we might be down to 9. And I'm like, okay, that goal's going to be pretty, trying to find. So that's one of the big things right now is we are really looking out and reaching out to people to get more directors for our board and everything. So March book sale is coming up, second weekend in March. That's a big thing. Please come by and take a look. It's always amazing to see how many people come out. It's a great deal and everything. So we would we'd look forward to having you drop by and during the book sale and everything. That's all.
That was a lot. Thanks so much. And I actually saw your new website today. I clicked on the PPLD link on the website and it took me right over there. I was like, this is different than the last time. So it looks good.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Any questions for our friends from the board? All right, seeing none. Next up is the foundation report, Mr. James.
Do I get to leave early?
If you would like, you are welcome to do that.
I don't know that my supervisor would allow that, but I'll ask in offline. Good evening, everyone. Foundation report. Any questions as submitted? Awesome. One thing I did want to point out, we received a generous estate gift just south of about $27,000 from a a patron who had been in the community for a long time. And these opportunities are always great to just remind everyone that the planned giving space in fundraising, especially right now with what is happening with the generational transference of wealth. So because the baby boomer generation is so large and because they have contributed so mightily to the economic growth and growth the GDP, there is about 68 trillion. That's a T, that's not a B, that's Tom, not Bob. $68 trillion worth of wealth about to be transferred from the baby boomers to the younger generations. And so as I am a fundraiser and my job is to ask, certainly this is always a great reminder to consider including the Pikes Peak Library District Foundation in your estate plans. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Great. Any questions for Mr. James? All right, thank you so much. Next is our financial report. Mr. Green.
Good evening, everyone. It's great we could still meet, even though our weather's changed a little bit. So I know this came out late this afternoon and is a financial statement, but it is significantly shorter than our last version, and this format does match to our budget presentation that you all worked through with us recently. So I'll probably spend a little bit more time on this than I normally will from here on out, just because you didn't get it until late this afternoon. But as you can see, the first page is PPLD as a whole, our annual budget as adjusted for, yeah.
Could you share your screen so that?
Oh, yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
totally forgot that, sorry. Just gotta find the share button.
The green one in the bottom.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you. All right, there you go. Can you all see that?
I gotcha. Thank you.
All right. So again, this is a format that is matching closer to what we're presenting in our budget. This annual budget has been adjusted for our resolution from last month's meeting, January. So you can see that our net impact of fund balance is 736,000. What I'm doing now is showing activity year to date through the month that we just finished. So obviously we just finished January. So our 1 month activity, in a lot of ways, this was just for the first month out. I just divided this, straight lined it out for the rest of the year, unless I had obvious trends to look at, which, like for our property tax, I can look at that trending over the previous years, and it doesn't come out straight line. But as you can see, it came in really close to what we ended up getting from the county for our revenue for the month of January. We haven't really had a whole lot of the grant dollars come in yet. That generally comes in a little later in the year. We will see interest income every month, and that's actually a number that's very similar to what we've been seeing through latter part of last year. So I'll probably be coming to you with an adjustment on our interest income as the year goes by. We do have a month comparison. It's favorable by $1 million at this point, but again, we're only a month into the year. The next slide is basically showing similar information summarized a little bit more. You'll notice that the expenditures have been rolled out by department, or not by department, more by group. So library services obviously is our biggest number. Year to date, we're actually showing less impact than the 1/12 piece of our activity. So we've got a favorable comparison there of 685,000. This is our general fund expenditures. This is the one that is broken down more by department. And I won't go through this in too much detail, but you can see library services again is a large number. Details, pretty much what I showed you on the previous page on these subtotals. I keep going. $35,425,000 is what we ended up with for general fund expenditures, and we've spent $2,087,000 of that to date, which is a little below what I was projecting for 1 month. Which is always good to see. Capital fund, you're not going to see any spending here because the way we ended up doling out the mill levy, we did not put additional funds into capital fund, and we're depending on our fund balance, beginning balance, to carry us through this year, and hence the additional resolution for rolling our capital fund balances forward from last year. So we'll start seeing some spending on that in next month's report. Self-insurance, this is something that we were not reporting on a monthly basis in our previous reporting, so we are doing that now. And obviously you can see property taxes, as was approved by the board, is getting about a 9% piece of our property tax revenue. And then this would be employee contributions off their paychecks. And then personnel and operating expense. Operating expense is probably going to be a little higher in January than the rest of the months that you will eventually see. Our $170,000 premium for our non-employee insurance was paid in January. And we also had a workers' comp premium for about $47,000. So that's this looks, it'll look unusually red the first month because of what we're doing. And then another thing that we decided to add that would, I think, make it easier on all of us, as these budget resolutions are going to be rolling out, every month if I need to. This is a recap of where we started, and then resolutions that we've done, including the first one to approve the initial, and there's our January 18th, and the February 15th, which hasn't been approved yet, but I thought I'd put it on here anyway, is for rolling our capital budget forward from last year.
It's a pretty bold assumption there.
Hmm?
That's a bold assumption.
Yes, I hope you do, because Gary's already come to talk to me several times. Anyway, anybody have questions on the new format or what I presented, or things that you would like to see changed or not? And I guess changes, if you want, we can do that offline, because I know we got a tight schedule tonight. But
I don't have any questions or changes that need to be made, but I do like how you're reporting out on each of the regions, and then how you're not only the initial regions, but then breaking it out for each of the libraries. It
yeah,
gives us a better picture of what's happening at each of our local libraries. Thank you very much for that.
yeah, no, I even, this just rolls back to the changes we made on the budget. It brings it to a higher level for you all, and I think this is a lot less information to digest, and you get the big important pieces to look at and not so much detail.
All right, anyone else, questions or comments on the budget?
The only question I have is that 300 plus resolution. Is that something that you're asking the board to approve tonight? Because I don't see it on the agenda. So if that's an item that's too late for the agenda.
Yeah, it was an item that was too late for the agenda, and it actually became kind of an urgent need. I think Friday afternoon, Gary did approach me several times about rolling this and I actually had planned on, I thought I could wait till March. And just because of changes in the way we're doing this, and we didn't put any money in new money in the budget to deal with his capital needs. We told him he could spend $1 million, but he doesn't have any money to spend that million until we approve this resolution. And long and short, without looking at that particular document, I'm shown as of December 31st on our books, I've got roughly $4.6 million. If I peel $1 million off, that leaves me with 3.6 million. And so we had actually about $200,000 more than that available to roll over on open POs. And obviously I can't send that capital fund into a negative balance. So Gary and Justin and I got together yesterday, I think it was yesterday, and basically identified some things that I could peel out to get that thing to balance. So that's the reason why it's so late. And so I apologize for that. It's just with all stuff going on, including this, it just kind of snuck up on me as far as a need. And the schedule of all the projects that got rolled forward and the $1 million that got approved on our 23 budget, it's in, I believe that document is, if it isn't out there, then I'll obviously be pulling that up on the screen.
So let me just ask for the trustees here, any questions, comments, or concerns, discussion around this February 15th budget adjustment number 2 and rolling that 3.6 million over?
I don't have any questions, but are we planning on voting for it now, or do we want to wait until after the new items?
I was just gonna add it to the consent agenda if you guys are good with that. So when we approve the consent agenda, this goes. That's why I wanted to see if there's any discussion about it.
Okay.
So could I get a motion to add the February 15th budget adjustment number 2 as presented by the CFO to the consent agenda?
So move.
Do we need to read the entire resolution out?
The verbiage on it is actually fairly short. And then I do have an attached schedule with a list of the projects. I also organized that a little differently than you've seen the monthly reports in the past. Actually broken it down by major build group, if you want to call them that, and then the locations under each one of those with dollar amounts for each one of those. And I'm not sure if Laura was able to get that out on our website or not. I thought it was out there, but again, I know it's late notice.
Okay, so do we need to go ahead and read the resolution for the record before we vote on moving it to the consent items?
Scott, do you have that language?
So I don't have the language in front of me.
All right, so.
If you do, might as well read it.
Okay. All right, so I know Dr. Stoll made the motion to move it to the consent items. But as a reference or information, I'll go ahead and read it. Resolution appropriating additional sums of money to defy expenditures in excess of the amounts budgeted for Pikes Peak Library District, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Whereas the Board of Trustees previously established a capital fund, the purpose of which is to account for all financial activity relating to various capital projects. The funding of which comes primarily from the distribution of property tax revenue as an allocated portion of the district's annual mill levy, specifically earmarked for the capital fund as approved by the Board of Trustees. And whereas a total of $3,620,578 of funds previously approved in the prior year budget, but not yet spent, shall be carried over into the 2023 budget. Now, therefore, it is resolved by the Board of Trustees of Pikes Peak Library District, Colorado Springs, Colorado, that the 2023 appropriation of the capital fund is hereby increased from $1 million to $4,620,578 as per the attached schedule, adopted this day, 15th day of February 2023. And I'll second Dr. Stoll's motion.
All right, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 You opposed? All right, thank you. We'll add that. Laura, if you can get that added to the consent agenda for the minutes, that'd be helpful. But for now, it will be added to the consent agenda. Thank you. Any other discussion around the financial report?
Thank you as always, Randy, to you and your team.
Thank you, board. Thank you for responding to that late request. And I'll let my team know that. You just met two really good ones.
And we want to make Gary happy too. So
As I say, we're doing it for Gary, not for you.
Yeah, and that's I probably forgot to mention that. Obviously, this is all stuff that was in last year's approved budget, and so there's and like I said, I actually had to take some things out to make it work. So there aren't any surprises in here. So I wouldn't do that, but just thought I'd let you know.
All right, thanks. And as Dora mentioned, I like the new format, so thank you for working on that. I think it's much more digestible for us. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, if you want to stop sharing, we will move on to support services reports, which are, public services reports. I read the wrong line. Ms. Sales.
Good evening. Any questions in regards to the report?
I do appreciate you putting that together. This is a really long report.
Yeah.
And I know that it's a lot of work for you and your staff, or the staff. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
The public service directors do a pretty good job of narrowing it down. The only thing in the report I just wanted to point out to you is we did kick off our educator card in
Yes.
January. And so that's for any teacher, homeschooler, secondary educator who comes in and identifies themselves as an educator. They'll get an extended checkout. So we're pretty excited to start that. And I just wanted to make sure you saw that one, but thank you.
Yeah, I think that's great.
I'd like to
I
make,
had a question on the communications department report. And I saw this and it says Michelle is leaving.
yes.
Is that right?
It is.
Can I make a comment on public services before we move on to the other reports?
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
I really want to tell the staff, whomever sends out the message, that it's really exciting for me to see how many of the staff are taking advantage of professional learning opportunities, whether it's presenting or they're being called to help to do other things for other libraries or going themselves. I noticed that somebody was admitted to Leadership Pikes Peak. So that just makes our library, our staff, just that much more wanted out there by other community opportunities that could be out there. So thanking them for all that, because I know when you go to school or do something outside of your regular workday, you're putting in the extra hours. And I definitely appreciate it to keep our library on the forefront.
Amen.
Thank you, Dora.
great
I'll let
comment.
them know.
Or anything else on the public services report? All right, we'll move on to the support services report. So Dr. Stoll, yes, Michelle is leaving us.
May I say a few words about that?
Sure.
Please do.
Okay, actually, I wanted to include it in my report. So again, this will be for Michelle Ray, the last board meeting, attending as the Chief Communications Officer. And I would like to thank her for everything that she has done for us and for the communications department. So thank you, Michelle. You'll be greatly missed, but I know that you will stay as a great advocate for our library system. So we are very fortunate to have you in the community. And also I would like to thank Denise Abbott for taking the interim position. And Denise will start in her new role. Honestly, she has already kind of started, but officially that will be the 20th of February. So Denise, thank you very much for doing that. Also, we had very interesting couple of weeks learning a lot. So just wanting to take this opportunity again, thank Michelle and also thank Denise and thank everyone on the communications team. So.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions on the support services report or Michelle's departure? Other than we're sad to see you go, but.
I have something.
Excited about,
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in our report, we're talking about the multi-factor authentication rollout. I was hoping to meet with all of you board members tonight in person to help you get that set up on your accounts. Unfortunately, Mother Nature had other things in mind. So I will have to probably get with all of you individually to get that set up. It is a requirement for our cybersecurity insurance to get that done. So I will be in touch with instructions. I'll send those to you. And if you are having problems with those instructions or need individual help, I will definitely be available for that. So just want to let you know that we'll get you all set up. So appreciate your time. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Justin. And when is that policy going into effect? Is it in effect currently?
Yeah, so we've rolled out to Daniel Son, our interim director of infrastructure, IT infrastructure, has headed that project up, and he has done a wonderful job. We've actually rolled it out to all of our branches so far. We still have mobile library services to finish up with because of their kind of strange schedule they have. You know, it's kind of harder to meet up with them as much as it is with other branches, but we've got that mostly. It's probably, I'd say 90% rolled out. Mostly it's just mobile library and the board of directors or the board of trustees that we need to roll out to. So once we get that done, we'll get that date to Randy that, hey, we've got the firm stop, we're done, we've got it globally rolled out, and then we can let our insurance company know.
Awesome. Thank you.
Aaron, I just wanted to add a little bit onto that. So when I approached our insurance company this year about our application and all that, that was the first thing they hit me up for. Have you guys got an MFA? And so basically we got an extension through the March 1st to give us a little time and have a policy in place so we could get this done. So our hard deadline for getting this up and going is March 1st.
Okay, great. And so do we have any concerns with getting the mobile libraries enrolled and rolled out before that deadline?
No, Dan is actually going to meet with Lisa and the team after hours around 6 o'clock when they roll back in and get them all set up. So,
okay.
Yep. And if you want to get started yourselves, board members, really what you need is the Microsoft Authenticator app. That's the easiest way to log in. If you get that app in your app store and use your PPLD credentials to log in, it'll kind of walk you through the login process. You probably have to log in a couple times, and then it might even ask you for a cell phone number as well as a backup, so that it can maybe like text you a code if you know the app isn't available or something like that. So you'll have multiple methods that you'll set up with that one app. If you get that app set up, you're actually good to go, and then we can just flip it on your account. But I'll send you all instructions on how to do that. And like I said, if you have any issues with that or whatever, I will meet up with you individually. No problem at all.
Great.
I was actually going to ask that exact same question, Justin. So I appreciate you reading
No
my
problem.
mind, which is kind of scary. So
Yeah, no problem. And if anybody doesn't know what MFA is, kind of like when you log into your bank and you use your login credentials, then they send you a text code as well. It's basically saying, yes, I am me, because I have my cell phone in my hand and I'm logging in right here. This is not some hacker, it's me. So that's the premise behind it.
We'll reserve comment on whether the premise is an accurate premise or not, but that's a whole different conversation that we can get into. Happy to oblige to help with the insurance requirements there. All right, last call for support services. Any questions from or comments from the board, or any support services directors here that have anything they'd like to say? Michelle, I see you. I see that hand. Go ahead.
I wasn't sure if it was appropriate at the time, but I did just want to say a few words to you all. So just thank you to our board of trustees, to our leadership. Obviously, I've been very appreciative of Tayona's leadership, especially in the past almost 1 year. I also wanted to say thank you to Denise, who will be stepping in as interim chief communications officer, and to the whole communications team. Everyone that I just spoke of made it very difficult for my decision to leave, but I had to make the decision that was best for my family and the circumstances that we're in now. But I did just want to voice my appreciation in this kind of public official meeting, and to know, as Tayona said, that you will continue to have my support as a patron, a supporter, an advocate, a donor, all of the above. And I wish you all well going forward. I know you all are in great hands with our leadership team and management team and all staff.
Thanks, Michelle. All right, moving on, we have the interim chief librarian and CEO's report. So Tayona, I'll turn
Thank
it
you
over to
thank you very much. Again, it's very emotional to go after Michelle, but again, thank you, Michelle, for everything that you've done for this district and the community. So I also want to take this opportunity and thank our El Paso County Public Health. They've been extremely helpful working with us when it comes to the interesting challenge that we suddenly face. That's the meth contamination, our testing. So, and we will continue working with them. And also, I'm going to actually do the same thing as I've been submitting weekly updates to the Board of Trustees. If you have any particular questions, I will be more than happy to answer those questions here. And I think Debbie unmuted herself, so I think maybe she has a question. So
I'll wait till you're done.
Okay, so, and another thing that, as you've noticed, we decided to retain the book, Doing It, Let's Talk About Sex by Hannah Wilton as a classified. We had 3 librarians reviewed that material. And also I took quite a bit of time reviewing that, looking at it. Even I had an opportunity to read some of it. So, but it was decided to retain that material as classified. So that's my report, because also I understand our agenda is quite long. So Debbie, do you have
I just wanted to point out that Tayona was named an unsung heroine of the Pikes Peak region, and congratulations, but I hope that you don't feel unsung at PPLD, because you're definitely a hero for all of us, for all the work that you've done this past almost year. So congratulations and thank you is all I want to say.
Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate. Thank you, everyone. So thank you. That was a surprise when I received that email. So, and I appreciate those individuals who nominated me for that. I had no idea. So thank you.
I also wanted to say thank you to Tayona for the little weekly tidbits that she sends out. It does make it so much nicer to kind of see the flow of what's happening in the library instead of on a monthly basis trying to go through the longer reports. So I appreciate all that you're doing and keeping us abreast on all the situations that are occurring and why they're, what you're doing. So I thank you for those.
Yeah, thank you, Dora. I actually should not take credit for that. That's actually the idea that Erin gave me when we had our first meeting. So, because a lot of things happen every day. So just to make sure that all of you are informed what's going on in a library district. And I never want any of you to find out something from a newspaper or the media coverage. So no, bosses don't like to be surprised. So, and trying to like also, I don't like surprises. So doing my best to make sure that you also are not surprised.
Well, kudos to Erin. Thank you very much.
I'm going to pass it back to her. She's the one who's actually giving those out every week. So I appreciate her fulfilling that request of mine. Doing a great job with it, Tana. So thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question about those. They're very informative and I do appreciate that. But do we need to post those as part of the report like we do for the support services and public services? Do we need to post those into the agenda under the interim chief librarian report? Or is it just, I know that they're still part of the core request if needed, but I know they're not posted anywhere. So I was just curious about that.
So I can give you my opinion on that, Scott, is that we don't need to have that posted there. It is coreable. This is really more or less our communication or her kind of keeping us apprised of what's going on within the district. The report does not have to consist of just those weekly reports coming out. If there's additional things that she wants to bring up, this is a great time for her to be able to do that. In fact, I'd say most of the time we don't have an interim director report in the packet anyways. It's usually a verbal report and not a written report. And so this actually kind of functions both ways, that if people are curious about what she's communicating to us as the board, they can, it is coreable through, it's emailed, that's out. But it still gives us more up to the minute stuff. So I don't think that's a necessary step that we need to take, because it is available. If people are curious, we're happy to provide that.
Okay, I was just curious about that because even if it's part of a report, that's a verbal report, it's at least recorded as part of public record and somebody can go back and listen to this or even look at the report once it's done. So I was just curious about that.
Sure.
So thanks.
Yep. Anything else on the interim chief librarian's report?
No, thank you very much. That was it. So if there are not any other further questions, then
Sounds good.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, next are our board reports. We'll start with our CEO search committee, Debbie and Dora. Turn it over to you guys, you ladies, excuse me.
Okay, I think I'm the lead this month. We'll probably alternate as we go along. I met with pretty much everyone at the committees and then presented what I think is my summary, although as soon as I'm finished giving you these updates, we've asked Heather if she would talk to us a little bit about her comments on where we are in the process and where we need to go, so that we actually have experts involved in making sure we do all this correctly. So there are a couple things I can update from the committee meetings. One is that we have received one application now. So soon, I'm sure they'll be flocking in. We at the committee meetings, we had talked about the criteria and the job descriptions and all of that. Once we posted, I clarified this with Heather, once we posted the job description, then our criteria are out there. So I can check that off my little sheet of things that we need to do, and we don't have to worry about that. And then I just want to make sure, because I think there was some discussion about when and who will see the applications when they come in. So there's sort of a delicate little dance that we have to do in this first round of applications as people submit them. Not everyone has told their current employer that they are applying for a job. Usually that would come later if they advance in the process. And so we want to protect the privacy, obviously, of people and not have names leak out. And then second, I really don't think we're going to dump 100 applications on board members all at once. I don't think we're going to get that many, although I could certainly be surprised. So it's my feeling that, or our feeling, that those applications will be reviewed by the entire board at once after the application period ends. So that way, the other thing is rather than having an email go out here and then here and then here and somebody misses them or whatever, we'll all get all the information at the same time. And I'll ask you to hold your questions until Heather finishes because she will probably answer them all anyway. So Heather, take it away.
Sure. So just to piggyback, and importantly, the things I'm sharing are kind of garnered from questions that through Debbie, interacting with Debbie and Dora. So importantly, one of the comments about, what criteria do you want in a CEO? Importantly, usually when you review the job description, that's when you would look at like education and experience kinds of requirements and what kinds of, if you say, able to work with members of the public, able to work with elected officials, whatever the kinds of things you'd want to put in there, that's usually covered. So if you set criteria that's, different from what's in the job description, that can be a challenge for an applicant to know what is it that you're looking for, because hopefully it's clearly covered already in the posting. Additionally, I was just looking for the clear guidance about whether you wanted applications as they come in versus at the end. And Debbie kind of said she was understanding that it was toward the end. So that's great. We'll batch them up at the very end and make sure that the board gets a chance to review all of them there at that point. And when I say the end, remember that's a temporary end. That's your first look, your priority deadline. And of course you can leave it open as long as you want to leave it open to get whatever kind of candidates you're seeking, quantity and quality wise both. Importantly, I know that there had also been some discussion about what pieces were going to be done in public meetings versus in private. One of the things that I just wanted to share for your consideration is that, of course, if the things you do in public meetings, you run into a little bit of a logistics challenge as far as then is there an advantage to folks who go later that they can see who answered earlier or who presented earlier? If, obviously I could do way better in an interview or in a presentation topic if I saw others do it ahead of time, right? It gives an advantage. So we just have to be thoughtful about how we set up the logistics for candidates when you get to those series of the review process to make sure that we're handling it in the way you want to, with the transparency you want to, balanced with what is fair so that candidates, that nobody's at an advantage or disadvantage, if that makes sense. So I think those were all the topics that I was asked to kind of speak about, but obviously if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks, Heather. Any questions for Heather or Debbie or Dora? All right.
Wow.
Thank you.
I'm
Great
sorry.
job, ladies.
I didn't get in in time. So now that we've heard the report, are we going to have another report at the end about the discussion, or what is that going to really entail?
So the discussion now at this point is going to be more on the timeline than on the criteria, since the criteria has already been decided. So we'll have that discussion, but it's outside. This was just sort of an update on this is where we're at. We'll have our discussion about the timeline shortly.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep.
I have a suggestion, if you don't mind. Nothing says that we have to talk to every single person that puts in an application. I think the committee that is trying to put this together would have an opportunity to take a look and say, we've looked at everybody, and these are the top 5, 10, whatever it is that we think have a good opportunity or would be welcome as CEO for the library here. And those are the ones then we get to look at personally. Otherwise, I don't know why we need to look at all of them, because we need to eliminate them down to a certain point so we have a chance to find those that look like they may be the most successful at going through the process here. That's just my suggestion.
I think that's a great discussion point. Let's put a pin in that, because I have some ideas around that. So let's put a pin in that and talk about that during the timeline, because I think that process plays into the timeline well. So I think it's a great suggestion, Dr. Stoll. And so let's talk a little bit more about that shortly. All right, anything else for the search committee update? All right, thank you, ladies. Thanks. Next is our governance committee. Oh, someone have something? Okay, governance committee report.
All right, so good evening, everyone. We did meet and we did have a fairly full agenda. There was one item that we did not discuss, during our meeting, and that was the CEO goals for now. We're deferring that until the March meeting. We did discuss or did get an update from Debbie. And so Debbie stayed that entire day for all of the meetings and gave us all an update. So thank you, Debbie. Board training and trustee orientation was one of the items. And I don't want to put Julie on the spot, but she is the new trustee this year. So we are planning on having an orientation to kind of go through things with her. We did discuss that, and we'll be reaching out to you, Julie, to kind of get timelines and see when you're available to do things like that. When we do get those dates situated, then we obviously will open it up to other trustees if you are interested in joining. It is not required, but it is an optional thing if you are interested. The other items we talked about were the adopted trustee sign up. We were hoping to do that tonight, but obviously we can't do it. So we will defer that one until March. And in March also, we're planning, and I say planning because it's not set in stone yet, to do a board photo. We're trying to see if the person that does the photography for us, I can't remember their name, is available to do it during our March meeting. If not, then we'll kind of work through what we can do. And I think in the past, after they've done a group board meeting, the photographer usually can do individual meeting, photographer, blah, 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 can do individual pictures if you need one as a headshot for the website. In addition to that, we also talked about Mina's recognition. I did get a few donations, and I do appreciate that. Obviously, I was going to try to get some additional donations tonight, but I can't because obviously of this. So we'll try that again. I will try to do something because we need to kind of get that situated for her. So we need to work out schedule as that. So more to come on that. I believe that is all I had. Any questions?
Scott,
Yes.
do you have a Venmo account?
I do not. I do not like using Venmo or PayPal or any of that other stuff. So
Okay, that's fine.
sorry.
Is there a reason we can't do the signups for the adopted trustee digitally? Can we do that? Can we pass around a Excel doc or something?
The only issue I have with that is that everybody, if you got 3 or 4 people that want the same thing, how do you determine which one's going to actually do it? So what we usually do in the past is we usually have like, and I'm putting Julie on the spot again because she's the new trustee, but she would be the first one that would be able to sign up for the positions. We could try that, and then she could send it back to Laura, and then Laura can send it out to somebody else, and back and forth. I would rather not do that. If we could, if you want to try to do that, the only other way we could try is on SharePoint or on the PPLD intranet. But I think that I think we need to wait until we get Justin's multi-factor authentication set up for everybody before we can try to do that. That would be my suggestion. If we want to try to do that, that's fine. I'd kind of leave that up to a combination of Justin and Laura on when we can get all that set up.
So that's what I was going to ask Justin, is if there's a way we could do like an Excel doc on SharePoint so that we could all kind of edit it, and Laura can help finagle and whatnot as far as making sure Julie has first options in there, and then the rest of us can sign up afterward. Is that something we could work out?
Yeah, I think that we could create a SharePoint group would be the best thing, and it has a documents section in there. We'll put the Excel document in there, and it's private to only the people that are in that SharePoint group. So you're the only ones that can access it, and you can all actually work on it at the same time. With our Office 365, it's collaborative, so you can all be in there at once working on it. That'd probably be the best option.
Sounds good. Is that okay with you, Scott? If we
that's fine. The only thing that I would suggest to the trustees is come up with a couple of options. don't just set your goal on just 2 of these and just say, I'm going to get these 2. That's it. Try to come up with 3 or 4 because somebody else may be wanting to do the same thing. So just kind of keep that in mind if you could do that. I know that there were some changes that I just remembered this. I know that there were some changes that we were making. We were combining a few of these as well. So we'll have to wait until those things are combined before we can actually sign up for them, but just keep an eye out for that. And if you don't have access to that intranet for the board, reach out to our good friend Justin, because he would be able to provide you that information. And it may be that it's been a year or 2 before you've actually accessed it. So again, you need to have a more up-to-date password, because I think that it requires a change every 60 or 90 days. And if you forgot that, then I'm sure Justin could work with you on that as well, along with the MFA stuff.
Yep, we have self-service password reset built into our system as well. So I can get you a link to that. You can reset your own password. And those actually sign-in methods are kind of tied to MFA. I say kind of because you can't use email as a way to use for MFA. It's just not secure enough. So, but you can actually use email to reset your password. So there's multiple methods. I'll get you the links. You can click on it and check your account, and you can see all your methods listed right there.
Scott, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Did you discuss the conflict of interest form? Because I know that we had had conversation on that at the end of the year on having it digitalized.
That's the one thing that we're kind of waiting for as well, is to get that digitalized. And honestly, I would love to do the same thing. If we could just throw it up on the SharePoint site, that would be the easiest thing, instead of sending it via email when then we have to sign it. And it's just a lot easier to me if we could do it that way. I'm sitting here thinking, can we just, in that conflict of interest, because it requires that we sign it, if we can digitally say either like a checkbox or something. I think there's a way you can actually do that through Adobe, where you can electronically sign it, but I don't know if we have that software, the whole suite of Adobe Acrobat. That's a question, and I think Laura's going to say something about it.
Laura's got answers.
And I apologize in advance if my bird starts singing. We have DocuSign. I tested it with the leadership team, and we managed to get the form to the point where it will work and the fields expand as needed. So that is all set up and ready to go. I just haven't had time to send it out yet, but I should have it out to everybody by the end of the week for the conflict of interest form.
So let's wait until we can get it on the SharePoint, and let's do it that way. That way you don't have to send it out via email.
What she's doing is DocuSign. So she sends it out via email, and then you just sign it on the document. And so my understanding is it's fairly easy and straightforward. It's going to be a more secure signature process than putting it on the SharePoint, is my understanding.
Well, I just thought it would be easier when you sign it, that it would send it as an email as well, but maybe I'm being a little too fancy.
It's possible we're probably going to need to get you all set up on DocuSign as well with your PPLD email. So when you're sent future documents in DocuSign, you can just sign in and sign them, but you'll need an initial setup with your PPLD email and DocuSign to get that done.
Scott, you may want to set up on your training all this new technology for this old person here that's a dinosaur.
Yeah, and I do have some comments to make when we get down to the email communication policy, and I'm not going to make that in here, but I do have some things to add to that, where it's highly recommended that we use our PPLD accounts and not our personal accounts, but I'll mention that down there.
Sounds good. All right, anything else for the governance committee report? Governance committee report. All right, next is the Internal Affairs Committee report.
Okay, hello, everyone. Well, we actually had a pretty short meeting. It was attended also by Debbie. Thank you so much for coming in and giving us the CEO report as the update or the search update report. She also was kind enough to walk me through a little bit of what to expect in the coming year for internal affairs, and I really appreciated that. We did go through the interlibrary loan policy, the red line of that, and I believe we're going to look at that later this evening. So you'll get a little update and presentation on that. We also, as you mentioned, Scott talked about the electronic mail policy. So I figured there might be some more discussion around that. That'll be good to have everyone take a look at that and get their feedback. Tayona did that for us, and that was pretty much it for us. We didn't have our financial report from Randy, but you got to hear a little bit of that today earlier. So that was pretty much it for us. It was kind of short and sweet. Any questions?
All right, thank you. All right, next is Public Affairs Committee report.
Okay. I also updated the Public Affairs Committee on the CEO search, just to make sure that I cover all the bases there. But mainly what we did, we were so happy to have Denise and Michelle talk to us. We had a pretty free-ranging discussion over lessons learned from our exploration last year of whether or not to go for a tax increase or whatever. So what we learned from that process, what we would do different, what we would look at when making future decisions about what we want to do about our resources. So it was a very fruitful discussion, and I really appreciate the time that both of them gave to that. And also Erin for giving us a refresher course on Tabor and how that affects the library and our finances. So thank you for that. We talked a little bit, National Library Week will be coming up, and usually what we do is we split up among the board members all of the meetings that we're asked to come to listen to the National Library Week proclamations and to talk about PPLD when we're asked to. So you will be hearing more about that later. Any questions? That's it.
I do have a question. So on the adopt a trustee thing, there is a library section that you would be responsible for. So maybe we could do it that way for those people that are going to be visiting those branches. We could also ask that they attend those proclamations for those specific areas, except when we get down to obviously Colorado Springs, there are a lot of branches within the downtown area. So we'll have to work through that, but that would be just my suggestion.
We will take that under advisement, Scott. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, anything else for the public affairs? All right, thank you. Next up is our liaison comments. This is something that Tayona had mentioned, something that she had brought up, and so I thought it was a good idea. Decided to add it here. We have so for those of you who are on the call that aren't aware, we have a governing. So we are the Board of Trustees. We have a level above us that appoint the trustees to the library district. That consists of a couple members from City Council and a couple from our El Paso County commissioners. And so occasionally they stop by and join us. And so we wanted to give them an opportunity to speak for a few minutes. And we have Mr. Helms with us. I don't know if there's anyone else that's here. I haven't been able to look yet. So Mr. Helms, do you have any comments for us?
Yes, thank you, Aaron. So the one thing I look forward to is the CEO search. Looks like you've set down a really good agenda and timeline, and everything looks like it's going to flow really well with that. So that's very important, obviously. So I look forward to seeing that move along. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Ms. Geithner, I see that you're on, or Commissioner Geithner. Do you have anything you'd like to say? All right, I'm gonna take that as a no. All right, moving on to trustee comments. Do we have any comments from our trustees? General updates or thoughts?
I did receive some information today from one of our patrons, wanted to make sure that just with the name change of the Knights of Columbus, it was still going to be a community, open to the community, and I assured her, yes, it was. It's just getting a name change, nothing else.
Very good. So I'll go ahead and give a quick update. Tayona and I and a couple other from the administration met with Manitou mayor and a couple folks from their planning department working on the Carnegie Library and the update there. We had a pretty blunt discussion about the fact that we both we're committed financially to this project, and we are working the best we can to try to resolve it. As those from the Internal Affairs Committee understand from before, they were asking for a fairly large, more than what we're paying now for the MAC. They wanted a 15-year commitment from us to be able to move forward with acquiring loans, so that they could refinish the Carnegie there in Manitou and move us forward, and then we could move back in there. That is not something that our budget can maintain, and I was very clear and pretty blunt about that. And so we're exploring some other options. I don't have any updates for you at this point, but it is something that Tayona and I have had a couple conversations around how we might be able to do that and what that looks like in the future. And so I'm happy to chat with some of you guys. If you have any thoughts, there's really nothing else to bring up at this point, other than we're trying to find some creative solutions that will work for both us and them, so that we can really, we want to engage that community. We really like, the space they have is a gorgeous space. One of the things that they brought up was the fact that the elementary school sits right across the street and used to do a lot there, and now they don't have that opportunity. And so this would be not just a help for Manitou as a community, but also from the school district and giving their students a place that they could go and they could do training and tutoring and other kind of classwork, and really be a resource for the students there. And so it's something that we really would like to do as a partnership, but we have to find something that's financially doable for both organizations. So more to come. I'll keep you guys apprised as we move forward on that, but we did start engaging in some of those discussions at this point.
Aaron?
Yes, ma'am.
Clarification. When you met with them and you said they wanted a 15-year commitment, that's for the library, not for the MAC?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anything else, Scott?
Yeah, I did have a question. Do we know when the MAC contract is up for renewal?
Yeah, so it's up for renewal in March. So we will have to renew that. At this point, the contract is a 6-month we have to give them notice of 6 months if we're going to be vacating that agreement or that location. And so we'll need to look at that renewal next month and what that looks like, but we'll try to find terms that make sense for how we navigate between the MAC and the Manitou Library. It's not something that we'll be able to do both. And so we need to have those discussions with MAC and as we move forward, so that we can all be on the same page.
Great, thanks.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right, next is our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion that the PPLD Board of Trustees approve the consent items as amended.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries and the consent agenda is approved. Next up for new business. So as we shift into trying to follow Robert's rules a little more closely, we need to have a motion on the table before we engage in discussion. So I'm going to go and ask for a motion, then we will move into discussion about the item. So do we have a motion for decision 23-2-2, renaming Knights of Columbus Hall?
So moved. Yes. Do I need to read it?
If you could on this one, please.
Okay. I move that the Pikes Peak Library District Board of Trustees approve the renaming of Knights of Columbus Hall as presented.
So I do have a couple of questions that I want to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna hold on one second, Scott. I was gonna ask. I know Becca, was it you and Denise that had worked on this before, and so I was gonna give you guys a minute if you guys wanted to chat about kind of where we landed. I know at the last meeting you presented a couple options, and we're still, had a couple front runners and contenders there, but nothing that was a formal recommendation. So I'll turn it over to you guys, and then Scott, after that, I'll let you ask your questions.
Don't we have to second the motion before we discuss it?
We did.
He seconded it already.
Okay, I didn't hear that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So as we had discussed before, we wanted to follow the naming policy, and the main focus for that is usually around naming it regarding a building, regarding its location. And when we looked at all of the different options that we could think of for locations, it was largely, we felt, going to be a little confusing for some of the other things that are already named for that area. And so we did decide to go with the hall at PPLD, just because it clearly brings it as a library building, whereas before there was a lot of confusion around that. And then it just is pretty neutral, but then also a little bit, as communications had talked about, how would you say it, Denise? It has a little bit more of the razzle dazzle, maybe.
Yeah, I would say it's a little fresher as we were looking to, PPLD has always been on the forefront of things that are happening in the library world. And so it keeps us in that area. And we then found some other businesses in the area that were named similarly. And that kind of proved why the hall fit that situation.
All right. Thank you, ladies.
At the start of our meeting, we had somebody, a public comment. A lady talked about basically naming that hall, and the fact that it was a Columbus Hall, and they're concerned with that. So do we want to consider, maybe she has some ideas on this as well?
So if we're gonna go that route, because that was also one of my questions, is if we involved anybody from the community in the decisions or any of the discussions that went on with actually naming the building, the hall at PPLD. If not, then the question would be, do we want to include certain people from the public to come up with the name? And if we do, then obviously that negates what we're planning on doing tonight, which is approving then the current name, or the name that we're proposing for the Knights of Columbus Hall. So I guess my question is, did we include anybody from the public? If we didn't, do we want to go and kind of go back and figure out, do we want to include input from the public on this specific item? So I guess I don't know if that would be something for you, Becca, or Denise, or both of you, or
I can answer. It was an internal discussion.
Okay.
Let me ask, did you engage Ms. Martinez with the EDI department in any of those discussions?
No, Shirley was not involved in any of the discussions.
And not in mine either. That is something that we can do if we need to. As I look at the policy that we have for naming our facilities, while it doesn't mention that, it's something that we do present to the public or patrons to vote upon. It's something that has been done by the board and internal staff. you know, I don't know if it's something that we do really want to consider. I would be open to hearing it.
So obviously this is my opinion. I really kind of like the Hall at PPLD. I know I had some concerns when it came through internal affairs initially, but I've thought about it quite a bit, and compared to a lot of, you know, some of the other recommendations that you guys had and things that you went through, the way you stepped out the process of kind of how it evolved and how you came to that actually makes a lot of sense to me, and I liked where it landed. I'm not opposed to having some further discussions about it, but I like the name and I'd have no problems voting on that tonight. But again, that's me. I'd love to hear from some of the other trustees to see if you
Well, I
guys.
guess Becca's place is out of the question.
It feels like that would be more of a tavern,
Oh,
style.
yeah, maybe
but,
so. Yeah.
So let me hear from the other trustees. Do you guys have any preference on whether we try to kick this back for more community engagement, or if we like kind of where we landed and want to move forward?
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I personally agree. I was a little concerned about some of the names coming down the list last meeting, but I do like the hall. I like that all the thought that Becca, Denise, the team has put around it, because and I heard our public comment earlier, and in thinking about that, I think something like the hall it is a little more hip or whatever you want to call it, but it also is very, I don't know if the right term is generic. It doesn't, there should be, no one that just calling something a hall offends or alienates, or it should, I think it embodies what you're looking to do, is just making it a very open place for the community to come and gather. So I also have no problem voting on the name change this evening and calling it done, because I do think you all put a lot of thought into the process and have done, done your due diligence there. So that's just my 2 cents on it, but maybe have some other thoughts.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I think Becca did such a stellar job of putting all that research in, and Denise as well, and presenting that to us last time around. So I have no problem with moving ahead with the hall at PPLD tonight. I think it clarifies what organization it's associated with. It eliminates any confusion about the purpose, and really is just a nice, neutral, broad name that everyone would feel welcome to. So I would agree with that as well.
Good idea.
As the old timer on the board, I will say that this is an issue that has arisen before on the naming of something. And it's been my experience that PPLD has a very detailed and thoughtful process to go through the naming of facilities. And if we want to look at changing that process to invite community suggestions or whatever at some point in the process, then I don't have a problem looking at that and deciding if that's something that we want to do. But I would caution against doing it ad hoc, and if we're not going to do it every time, because I think one of the benefits of having that process laid out is that it does make it fair for everyone. And I agree. I think the hall is an inclusive and community-oriented term, and hopefully there's not something that people would object to, but that's just my 2 cents.
I don't have any problem with the naming of the hall at all. I think it is very inclusive. It allows for diversity, just the name itself. I don't know who will be answering or communicating with the individual that made the public comment. But something needs, I feel like I would want an explanation as to why it is being decided on and no public input. And that may be something that individuals don't know in the community. And we need to be more open with that. And I don't know, I really don't know all the ins and outs of that, but I would think that I don't have any problem voting with it. I just don't want us to be dinged over a name. We have been dinged over many things in the public already. And so I guess my thinking is if we're all in agreement with the name, but I do think that someone somewhere needs to have an explanation. And if we vote on it and then give the explanation, individuals may feel like my voice is not heard.
Ms. Snowboard is still here listening to the discussion. And so what I would say, Ms. Snowboard, if you could email Teona, and that way we'll have your contact information and then we can reach out to you if that's something you're still looking for. But sort of as Debbie had mentioned, this is kind of the process that we have internally when we go into naming things. It is more of an internal process. We have a lot of, you know, the people that are involved in the process, it's my understanding, we have a lot of staff members that are engaged in the community. And so this is, even though it's done internally, it's not done in a vacuum, is kind of what I would say. And so if you would like more of a discussion around the naming stuff, please send that to put her email there. So email her and we can have that discussion. So any other discussion around the naming of the hall?
I do. I still have a question.
Yes.
Actually, one comment and one question. The question I have is the building labeled today Knights of Columbus Hall? If it is, how much is it going to cost to change it? And then I want everybody on the board to know that once we approve it, that's the name we're going to go with. And I'm sure Gary would like to make sure that that's the name we're going to go with so that he can get the facilities group to work on getting the name changed. Because I think it's labeled on the entrance, the main entrance, which is from the parking lot. I don't know if it's labeled on the front facing the street. Does anybody know?
I believe there's a sign there.
Yeah, there is.
On the front?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're going to move forward with making the name change and the board approves that tonight, that's the name we're going to stick with. Because like I said, Gary's going to have to start working on figuring out how much it's going to cost to get those signs changed.
Yeah, and part of this from the last meeting that we have a couple events that are coming up, and so it'd be nice if we could start utilizing the new name sooner than later so that we can start getting that from our PR side and start building the name recognition within the community. So so to Scott's point, voting on this tonight allows signage and for marketing to start utilizing that. Is that all that you had, Scott?
Yeah, that was all I had.
Okay. Anything else from the board? All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. That passes. Next is decision 23-2-3 interlibrary loan policy. Do we have a motion to approve?
It's okay. So this is something different. So I move that the Pikes Peak Library District Board of Trustees approve the interlibrary loan policy as presented. And again, we're only voting on the board portion, the board policy, not all of the stuff that's down below it, the procedures.
Do we have a second? Thank you. All right. Discussion. Amanda, I see that you're here. Did you have any comments you want to make, or just be available for questions?
Thank you, Aaron. I'm available for questions.
I do have a question.
Actually,
The amount that is mentioned, the $5 to $25, that is under the borrowing section. Was there a reason why we wouldn't put that down in the patron responsibility section as well? And again, I know that we're not voting on that specific portion, so I'm just curious as to why it wouldn't be down in that section.
Great question. Not all patrons. We want to make sure that interlibrary loan is free to patrons, but there are some things that have a cost, and so it's not their responsibility to pay for those items. And so we didn't want to cause any confusion regarding having some kind of fee associated with interlibrary loan that could imply that there will probably be a fee.
Okay, I guess the question that kind of stems around, because I read the whole paragraph and it does say that we do try to provide it as a free service. I just want I want the patrons to understand that even though it may be free, there are some lending libraries that do require some sort of monetary figure for them to get that book. And we may not have to put the $5 to $25, but I think that patron responsibility section should have some sort of a statement stating that there may be some fees associated with that based on what the lending library is stating that may need to be cared for. Just something along those lines. I think that if we don't put that down there, then the patrons are going to look at that and not worry about it, and then come in and get the book and then find out I have to pay $25 for this, but it doesn't state that anywhere in the patron responsibility section.
well, Scott actually says something in there in the last paragraph under borrowing. It says that patrons are notified of fees and must agree to accept responsibility for the charges before PPLD will proceed with the request. So if they discover in trying to get this thing organized so it can be borrowed, that there's going to be some kind of fee that the other library is charging, they will contact the patron and they have to agree to accept that, or the thing's off.
That's true under the lending section, but I'm talking about the patron responsibility section.
Well, this is a borrowing section. It tells you the process to go through.
Okay.
And the borrowing, I mean, it talks about if it's not returned, it's a fee of $100 assessed, you know, so, you know, you want this in there twice?
I have a question, Scott, just a clarification. Are you asking that part be moved to the board?
No.
Okay, so then we don't really
just a note saying the patron is also responsible for ending fees that come from the lending library.
And that is what you want added to the board?
No,
policy?
no.
So
The patron
board-
responsibilities. Okay, so look, we've done this before on policies where we make suggestions for the specific sections. And if whomever, being leadership staff, or in this case, it may be Amanda, actually says, well, yeah, that may be a good idea, they can add that there. If they don't, hey, that's no skin off my teeth. I'm just concerned that now the patron reads that specific section, because I got to be honest, there may be some patrons that don't read anything else in there and then go straight down to where they're impacted, which is the patron responsibility section, and don't see that, hey, they don't have to pay anything. And then, like I said, go in and get charged for something. Again, my suggestion, it's not a, we're going to do this, because that's not part of the board policy. That's part of the procedures and the outlining.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
But Scott, I agree with Dr. Stoll. It's in there that the library will contact an individual. So if you go in and want an interlibrary loan and you're asking for whatever it is, and they look it up, they're going to contact you and say, yes, I can get this item, but you may have to pay this amount. That's what I gather. That's the way I read it. It's not like I'm going to go in and they're going to do all this work. And then I go in, they're going to say, you owe me $25. It says before they even go through the process of getting the materials, they're going to let you know. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yeah, you're right.
Yes, that's correct, Dora. That's our procedure. We always double check and have verification from the patron prior to moving forward with anything that has a cost associated with an interlibrary loan request.
Okay.
But I appreciate the feedback and I will take that back to our team. Thank you, Scott, and everybody.
Any other discussion on the interlibrary loan policy? I will acknowledge, I appreciate the changes made to the board policy that we suggested in internal affairs. So thank you for doing that. Okay. Without further ado, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Right. Policy passes. Next up is decision 23-2-4 email communication policy. Do we have a motion to approve?
I motion that PPLD Board of Trustees approve the email communication policy as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, Scott, I know you have some discussion around this, so I'll just go ahead and start with you.
So the only thing that I have is that those of us that are still using our private emails to receive board emails, we have to make sure that if there are any core requests that come through, your personal email is now open for review to get those specific items if there are any from that core request. So my suggestion is that we've got these PPLD email accounts, we've got to use them. That's why they're there. And I know that prior to Justin being here, there was a process to set that up, and I'm sure that we could probably get that process out there again, but I'm highly recommending that you use the PPLD email to receive all of the board emails. It does make it easier when requests come through. Otherwise, if you're still using your personal email, we've got to make sure that it's also going to both emails. But it could be a possibility that when you respond to an email, it's using your personal email and not the board email. I hope that makes sense. Because I noticed that when I respond to things, if you respond to things on your personal email and send it to Laura or to other trustees, and you don't send it from your board email, then like I said, you open it up to core requests that may require you to provide emails from your personal account.
I don't think that makes sense.
So I think to cap off what Scott's saying, I think it would be better if we just say that the expectation is to use the PPLD email address. So that way there's several reasons for that. One, the MFA piece that Justin's talking about, it'll help secure your email situation. It'll help you get into the SharePoint and into the intranet if we need to set those pieces up. Tying it to DocuSign would be tied through that account as well, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have issues getting your ppld.org email set up, please reach out to Justin, or he will help you get that situated. But I'd say moving forward, the expectation would be that we use the ppld.org email addresses for organizational convenience, but also from a core perspective, it just makes things easier because then the team can pull those emails automatically and not have to reach out to you. So, and then this email policy that we're discussing right now is actually for those ppld.org email, well, all ppld.org email addresses. That is the library's email system. This will be the policy that governs those email addresses. Is there any other discussion around the content and the way that the policy is written? I'll make the same comment I made before, is all of the capital E's and emails really bugs me. If that would be the only
Yes.
suggestion that I would make, is
Yeah.
not having the E's capitalized. Other than that, I think it reads fine.
Well, we just missed it. We thought we made that adjustment. So it just like I was looking, I'm like, oh, we missed it. So we'll fix it.
That doesn't materially change the policy here. So we could still approve the policy, and then that could get changed after approval because the content is staying the same. All right. There's no other discussion. We'll go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries and the policy is passed. All right, that brings us to our discussion on the CEO search timeline. We're killing the criteria off of the end of that. So moving on to timeline. I'll turn that over to Debbie for the discussion.
Okay. So you all got a copy of the proposed timeline that we pretty much discussed in the committee meetings too. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? And remember that we can, if we decide to change it and move faster because we're able to move through the process faster, that's okay. But when we talked about everybody's realistic ability to meet and to go through the process that we outlined, this is what we came up with. So, questions? Heather,
So,
do you have anything that you want to say about the timeline?
Oh, and I'm not on video. Hey, yeah. So obviously it's whatever you all can work out together. As you've already mentioned, the one important piece I was going to say is that there is flexibility in that. Your tentative timeline is just your plan, depending on how you feel about the candidates when you get your first look, how many have to travel, all that kind of good stuff. There's nothing that says you can't decide to move faster or slower depending on what you're looking at that time. So
great, thanks.
I was going to bring up what Dr. Stoll had suggested earlier as far as having sort of a first pass through. What we've done in previous, when I've worked on some of the other boards, what we've done is we've gotten it. All of the applications, I don't expect we're going to have 100 of them. Just so you guys know, we had about 25 that came in for our superintendent search. So I would say if we were in that 20 to 30 range, I think that would be, I would expect that to be on the high side, but it's possible. So what I've done in other places, we basically, every board member gets all of the applications, and then we choice rank our top 5 candidates that we have. And then we compile that into a grid. And so then we pulled, basically the top 5 candidates that the group lists as their top 5, doing sort of a point system. So I rank mine 1 through 5. 1 is 5 points, 2 is 4 points, etc. And then we just pull the top handful that meet those criteria. So we're not interviewing everybody, just the people that we think are the top candidates based off of sort of a consensus rubric. And so I would propose something like that. That does mean that we'll have, a handful of applications to get through, but we won't know what that actually looks like until we get through that process in March.
That sounds good, Aaron.
Yeah, it sounds really good. The only thing I caution is as soon as we have our applications in, we need to move quickly. And one of the reasons I say that is I'm working with another nonprofit and we're in the process of trying to hire an individual, and they get whipped up quickly if they're looking to move or to get a position. So we don't want to be waiting around and kind of taking it slow because we could lose out. So when Heather says flexibility, we probably want to really be on track and get going as soon as we get them all and the position has been closed.
Good point.
So how much time do you guys think? I mean, we have the timeline we have here is a little vague, and I think that's probably an okay thing, saying early April for the preliminary interviews. the question is, if we say that we're going to have 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever that looks like, to review the applications. I know it's a little tough not knowing. If you get 100 applications, trying to commit to doing that in 10 days could be a lot, right? But if we have 15 applications that come in, you can get through that pretty reasonably. So my question is, as a rough timeline, depending on how many applications we have, and I'll put that caveat on there. Do we think 2 weeks would be close enough? And then, so we also need to make sure that we account for time to contact applicants and get something scheduled. Just because we want to do something, next week doesn't mean that they'll have availability for it. We can try that, but 2 weeks would put us roughly March 19th, March 20th, when we would have those applications reviewed, and then we could reach out and try to get something scheduled for maybe the last week of March, so we could move that up just a little bit. I don't want to rush us, but I want to make sure that we keep pressure on it. So that was my only real thought on this was, do we need to truncate this timeline in respect to making sure that we don't let good candidates evaporate out of the pool?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Debbie.
I think when we made the timeline and when we were in the committees, I think the worry was that we would have so many that we wouldn't be able to get through them in time. My personal feeling is that will not be the case. And so, yeah, we should be able to review them pretty quickly. Also, remember that spring break comes up in March, not only for us, but for candidates. So we're either gonna try to get early March, or we're probably going to be back to that April date, at least for some of them. So that's a consideration too. I did leave it kind of vague because until we know what the numbers are, we really can't set a strict timeline for getting through those. But I guess I would just like the board to sort of agree and be aware that once we have all of those applications, we all will need to move quickly and as quickly as we can and work through that process.
Yeah. And what I'd say is, I think the items that follow the April 19th and the May 17th dates are pretty well set and would be really hard to bring those up. And so I think wherever that early April for the preliminary interviews falls, it just kind of falls. Whatever side that falls on, I think is probably fine, because we're not going to be able to scooch everything else up, even if we wanted to.
Right.
A question. We're talking about, the concern over the, losing of good candidates, while we're waiting in this process. I didn't see anything in here, and maybe it is, or maybe you've said it, Debbie, and I've just missed it, and I apologize if I have. But when we're getting these applications in, like the one we just got, is it being communicated, or is it communicated in the post that we are working on a timeline here and that we're gathering applications until such and such date, and then we will be in contact? I just went through this with my husband. He was doing a huge job search, and, if he didn't hear back from a company, he would just move on to the next thing, or, and if they circle back with him at some point, then he might say, forget it. So I was just curious, as we're talking about, we want to make sure that if we have a candidate, if you're checking that application and going, if you and Dora are looking at it and going, well, this looks like a decent one, are we saying to them, we will be in touch with you? Or is it just kind of open application and whatever?
Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have an application deadline in the posting. Is that correct? And so whoever is applying would know that nothing's going to happen, or would assume, I think, that nothing's going to happen until that date. But yeah, then I anticipate being in touch with them right away.
Okay.
And And you hadn't finalized what your timeline looked like, so we couldn't share a timeline.
Right.
Importantly, when candidates apply through like a clearinghouse like Indeed or something like that, then the recruiter has to reach out and talk to them and say, hey, we really need you to apply in our system and things like that. So once you all have settled on a timeline that you're comfortable with, then we can add it to the step if you would like the recruiter to share kind of that rough timeline with candidates when she reaches out to them. That's for the folks who find us, like I said, in Indeed versus finding us coming directly to the PPLD page or through one of the other, many places that you all are advertising. So we can certainly add that proactive step once you all approve a timeline that you all feel comfortable with.
Thank you.
I have a suggestion, just to think about for a second, that if the timeline we have now is March 5th, the posting expires. That's the first week in March. What if that allow Debbie and Dora to take a look at them and provide us information about how many we have and whatnot the next week? So there's time for them to respond to people that have already turned things in. There's a chance for us to look at how many people we're talking about and start to go through the process of looking at those resumes and that kind of thing, and go from there. Just an idea. And then we could actually have a meeting just for the purpose of looking at these things and making some decisions, or we could include it as part of the next board meeting.
So let me ask for clarification. Are you saying not to move forward with a roughed out timeline until after March 5th?
I mean, you already got one. It's already in this comment right here in this committee report. I'm just saying,
okay,
use that as a basis for how we figure out then on after March 5, all the applications will be turned in. We'll know at that point in time. Debbie and Dora will know how many we're talking about. If it's 100 or if it's 10 or whatever, we'll know at that point in time and make it easier then to decide how we want to process them from that point on.
Okay. I mean,
Just an
that's fine
idea.
with me. I think that's fine with me. So I don't believe we have to take an official vote on this. I think we can just kind of give a general head nod of saying, yes, this timeline looks good to us. And then we can communicate that out. Is that something we want Heather to add to that process of communicating this timeline out, just so that applicants have a rough idea of? I like the idea because then we have two hard dates that we know that they'll need to, specifically the April 19th frame, but the May 17th, the announcement, those are hard dates that we're essentially committing to, and they know to start clearing their calendar if they're going to be, available. So that would be my suggestion, but happy to hear other thoughts.
That would be our suggestion too. And, to Dr. Stoll's comment, yeah, boy, as soon as we know what the final number is, we will let everybody know. And, however we decide to do it, whether it's in committee meetings or at a board meeting or whatever, I think, or a special meeting, which is getting harder and harder to call. I think we need to go through them as soon as possible.
Sure.
And I'm also definitely in agreement with all that.
Sounds good. I know we're all kind of chomping at the bit, a little anxious to see what those numbers actually look like for March 5th to get here. So, all right, any other discussion on that? I think let me thumbs up from you guys if you kind of like this this timeline and want to move forward with it.
Yeah.
All right, looks good. All right, thank you, Heather. If you need anything, please communicate with Debbie because she's got this. So Debbie and Dora. All right. That's all the business that we have for this evening. Last call for other items from the board. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I'll second.
All right.
Good night, all.
Good night. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.